One of the most misunderstood ideas about race car preparation is brake bias. And the word brake bias means the difference in braking pressure or power you have on the front end of the car in comparison to the rear end of the car. And there are many ways of checking this. The easiest way is to drive the car until you change the brake bias until the front brakes just barely lock up before the rears. But there are some methods you can use on certain cars, especially a lot of older cars, a lot of older chassis that do not have a cockpit adjustable brake bias system in it, and you have to do it down on the pedal. And that is by using what I call a brake bias tool. It just has a plate drilled out to the lug pattern of the wheel you use, and it has a 1-inch or a 15/16 or whatever bolt on the other end, and it's built up so it can slide onto the bolt pattern, and you can put a torque wrench on this, and as you do this, you have the driver or mechanic in the car who slowly squeezes the pedal down until this reads, your torque wrench reads just about 60 pounds, let's say. And then you go back to the back of the car very quickly. You have it jacked up also. Hopefully he's holding the pedal very steady. And you make sure that the back of the car is reading a little bit less, usually about 20 to 30 pounds less if you have the fronts at 60. Now you have to make sure that when you're doing this that the car is out of gear, obviously, because the engine is going to give you a lot of braking power also, and you don't want that to confuse your reading. Now as you're out in the pits and you are changing the brake bias, and let's say it's a new car and you're trying to get the brake bias correct for the driver, and he comes in and he says, okay, the brake bias is perfect, then what you want to do in the next break you have or the next time you have the car in the garage is to jack it up and check it and see what the ratio is front to rear. Like if the front has 80 pounds and the rear has 70 pounds, then that's what you want to mark down, and you remember that the next time you're in the garage you set it at 70 pounds and 80 pounds or whatever your reading was from the last test session. That way, whenever you go out on the racetrack, the brake bias is going to be about as close as you can possibly get it. Otherwise, if you have a cockpit adjustable system, it's a lot easier to adjust it. You know, the driver can do it all the time as he's driving. Now, if you don't have that, we'll now go inside the car and show you on the brake pedal how to adjust it. Now we're inside the car. We're showing you a shot from the driver's seat of the pedal system in the car. And just to orient you about where we are, obviously the brake pedal's here, the gas is here, and the clutch, and the brake bias bar is inside. Now the way this bar works on just about every race car that's ever been built is you can see that it swivels, and it swivels because this rod is all one piece that goes through both of these clevises, and there is a bushing inside that is clipped onto this rod. All right, so the bushing can slide inside the barrel of the pedal here, and so the only thing that determines the position of that bearing is where this rod is placed. In other words, if you move the rod over, then that bearing is going to move over also, and that moves over the pivot point of the brake system itself. There's two cylinders behind it. The one cylinder will be on this side and the other one's over here, and you have to determine by looking at the front of the car which cylinder goes to which rod. So let's say on this car that the cylinder on this side, on the left side, is the rear cylinder, and this one is the front cylinder. When we have too much front brake bias, that means that we want to move the pivot point toward the rear. So first we have to loosen the jam nut on the bar, and we hopefully by hand can turn this bar in this direction. Okay, screw it into this clevis and out of this one. That's going to move that pivot point over in the barrel. We move it to a certain point where we might want to try it. We go outside, we try our brake bias tool to make sure the bias is right, and after it is, we once again lock it down, and this holds it in place. Now one thing you want to be careful of is after you're finished with this, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of play side to side. This one has a little bit too much for what I'd like. You want just about a 1/16 of an inch. It's because when you get on the pedal and you press on the pedal itself, you don't want these clevises to bind just in case the bias is off to one side, because then the bar might twist like so, and the clevises would bind on the side of the pedal. So you want to make sure you have a little bit of clearance there, and hopefully you will be able later on to put on a driver adjustable system, which would just be a cable that would attach to this side and goes up to the cockpit so the driver can adjust it while he's driving.